Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining today's EAC webinar. This is Cassie Stumo. I am the marketing specialist here at EAC. Today we will be talking about all things Mathcad. For those of you who have used Mathcad, it'll be an overview of basic functionalities and benefits as well as advanced problem solving. And for those of you who have never used it before, we are here to show you how you can use it as your day-to-day tool for engineering calculations. We will begin today's session with an intro of EAC from Shannon Wilson, one of our EAC Mathcad experts, and then PTC's Mathcad specialist Colleen Garrigan will be taking over. The session is being recorded. Unless there are any technical difficulties, everyone will receive a replay after the webinar. Please feel free to drop questions in the queue and we will answer them after the presentation. So Shannon, I will pass things over to you.
Great. Thanks. Good morning, everyone. Just wanted to start out today with just a quick overview of EAC for those of you on the call who may not be as familiar with our company and what we do here. At EAC, we are dedicated to help companies transform the way they design, manufacture, connect to, and service their products. We have over 20 years of experience in various topics in product development and are a certified solutions provider for PTC. We offer a wide range of products and services, including CAD, PLM, and SLM software and desktop 3D printers. We implement the Internet of Things and augmented reality into business strategies, help with design and engineering projects, and offer training courses on topics such as Windchill, Creo, and Arbortext. Today's goal is to discuss one of our products a little further, and that is Mathcad. Colleen will be going over a product overview as well as a quick demonstration for us. I will now hand it over to Colleen.
Thanks. Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Colleen. I'll be walking us through a PowerPoint about Mathcad and also a quick demonstration. So we are going to be talking the whole time about Mathcad, which is a digital engineering notebook that helps you perform your calculations and document your design intent. So it's a software specifically for documenting the engineering process. So right now, we see a lot of companies struggling finding a standard way to document not only their calculations and any values that they need to save, but also design intent, critical information that should stay with any models or calculations you're doing so people understand what went behind any decisions that were made. So a lot of that time, those calculations might be scattered on pencil and paper and Excel workbooks, on different programs that you code in to help you solve problems, while the design intent and the textual information that is so important is scattered between emails, just on pencil and paper, or maybe on workbooks, or maybe not even written down. So that lack of standardization process really makes it hard to go ahead and share and reuse that information that you have. So you end up having all of this knowledge and decision making behind the models and end calculations that you make, and a lot of that gets lost and you don't get to reshare that from product to product, or even down the generations or people that are working within your company. And with that, with the scattered way of documenting calculations and design intent, errors are very hard to catch. If you have some formulas in Excel, other formulas on any other program, or even on pencil and paper, switching back and forth between them makes errors very hard to catch. And especially in those standard ways, you don't have anything helping you convert any of your units. A perfect example of an error that could have been very easy to catch is in 1999 when NASA sent a robot up to Mars that was going to be used to collect data about Mars's weather. So what they did is that they launched the robot, it made it all the way to Mars to crash and burn into the atmosphere. So when it got all the way to Mars, it couldn't calculate thrust correctly, and it misjudged where to go, and it ended up ruining millions of dollars in this robot because it crashed into the atmosphere. So what happened is that they were using a vendor to calculate thrust, and they used a different unit of force rather than NASA. And when they combined those together, when they used their calculation for thrust and their calculations and combined it with their own, that conversion was not done. It fell through the cracks, and it ended up in millions of dollars being lost into Mars's atmosphere. So our solution here is PTC Mathcad Prime. So what it does is it's going to help you analyze. It's going to have that strong math engine behind it to help you analyze and solve any calculations you need. But while you're doing all that good math, helping you work out what values are going to work best, right next to it, right alongside it, you can document your process, say why you're doing what you need to do. So that makes it easy to share to other people, to even if you're working on a next project, you can reuse some of that calculation and design intent that you worked on, or even if you need to share it with different vendors or anyone else in the company who might need to approve the design you're having. Makes it very easy to share. You're going to have all of the information you need all in one spot, so you don't have to go searching through your emails or searching through Excel workbooks to find it. Okay. So again, and I said this at the beginning of the presentation too, it's a digital engineering notebook that helps you perform your engineering calculations and manage your design intent. So we have these two pictures here, and we see that on the left, this is PTC Mathcad. You see you have all those good graphs, you have the math, you have the solving engine behind it, while also having this textual information describing what's going on. And it's not the picture on the right where you have to learn a whole nother coding language in order to use the math engine. So again, it's combining the ease of that natural math notation. You see you just have x equals, and then it's combining that with the powerful math engine and the look of an engineering notebook, so you can have all that good text along with all the math and graphs and diagrams that you want to have within it to share off to others. Okay, a little bit more about the specifics of Mathcad capabilities is that it's a whiteboard interface. It looks like a plain piece of paper. You can have a grid behind it or not, and it's natural math notation, like that's a term I used before. So that is just, you're not learning to code in order to use Mathcad. You're just going to say x equals or x plus y. You don't have to know a language in order to read the Mathcad workbooks whenever you send them out or to use it. And again, what I keep mentioning is that it's not, you no longer have to have one form of paper, of program to have your math or to do your calculations, and another one to document it, either from email or any Word docs. You can combine these together, combine your live math and the text and graphics and all your programs all in a single form, so it's so easy to just send it off to someone, and you don't have to find the 5 different pieces of documentation that you have for it. And then Mathcad, another huge benefit is that it's going to manage your units automatically. So like what we talked about with that NASA robot, where they were using a different unit for force than their vendor. If they had been using Mathcad, they could have taken all that good work that the vendor did, put it into their Mathcad workbook, and it would have updated the units for them automatically, made sure that all the conversions were done and everything was being calculated in the same units. What Mathcad also won't let you do is do anything. You can't add centimeters and seconds, and we're going to see that in the demo as well. So it's going to stop you from making any of those errors that might fall through the crack, like adding the wrong variables together. What Mathcad also is it's self-documenting. So that means if you're working in a Mathcad workbook, you're using it more as scratch paper, trying to find that perfect dimension or that perfect value that's going to work for your product. You can go ahead and do that, do all the scratch paper, do all the brainstorming on Mathcad. But what you can do after you're done is just make a few changes, add in a few texts, and you have your final document. You don't have to start over from scratch again or anything. You can change that rough draft into your final very easily. Okay, so Mathcad, not only can you go ahead and make it your final paper, but it's a WYSIWYG, or that means what you see is what you get. So that means that you're going to be able to print it, save it as a PDF, and it's going to look exactly how it looks on your desktop. You also have a rich numeric function library, so you don't have to teach Mathcad functions that you'd like to use. It's all in there within your library. With Mathcad, you also have strong capabilities to visualize the data and the values that you're finding. You can make XY plots, you can make polar contour plots, and even 3D plots. So you have a lot of ways to visualize and make sure people are understanding the point you're trying to get across with the data you are creating and making with Mathcad. Mathcad is also fully integrated with Creo Parametric. So that means not only can you push values from Creo Parametric into Mathcad, but you can also push values back from Mathcad into Creo. So it's a two-way street here. So that means you can take a dimension from Creo, put it in Mathcad, do some calculations, find out, okay, if this is the dimension for this, what will be the best dimension for the next step, the next part, and then you can push that back into Creo. And also, so that means that if you have the model in Creo, you can be documenting the design intent in Mathcad, and you can have that documentation attached to Creo and send them off together. So no one is ever confused looking at your Creo part, wondering why did they make this decision or why did they do it like that? You can have all of that described in your Mathcad document. That means also while you're designing, you can do analysis while you're actually making the product, while you're making the model. You don't have to wait to the end to go ahead and do those checks where you can validate and verify everything was done correctly. You can be analyst-driven design where you're actually checking to make sure it's correct while you're building it. Okay, from now, I'll move into a quick demonstration where we'll be able to see a lot of those capabilities in action. Okay, so we're just looking at a blank document here. I'm gonna move us into one that has partially been started, and we could take a look at a lot of those capabilities that I was talking about. Okay, the first thing is how you're able to document everything. So we see in the ribbon, we have a lot of options for how we want to format this title page here. So we'll go ahead, make it bold, change the color of it, just so we can really understand that we're talking about deflection in a beam. We have this nice title page, get it started, and then we can get into all the good math. Okay, again, we can toggle off and on this grid, whatever makes it easier to view the math and the text and the graphics that you want to use. We'll start off here, the first page. We're going to go ahead and include this diagram that we made of the cross section of the beam. So what we have here is that this diagram is actually a live container of PowerPoint. So we're able to double click on that diagram. It opens up PowerPoint. We're able to make a few changes, change the colors, change the size, anything you want to change. And what we're going to do is we're just going to close out of it then, and it's going to update for us in Mathcad. So that means that you don't have to go searching through your computer to find that PowerPoint. Where did I make this diagram? Where did I make this picture? You can just double click on it within your Mathcad workbook. It'll open up the PowerPoint that has the diagram. You're able to make a couple of those quick changes, exit out, and it'll automatically update for you within Mathcad. Okay, so that was looking at the PowerPoint container there. We're gonna take do some math next to it, define some variables, and we'll be able to see how Mathcad deals and how it works with units. So we'll just go ahead and define out B and D as my variables. And again, you're seeing that it's just B equals and D equals. You're not learning a coding language, or you're not able to understand what I'm typing here. It's like you did in elementary school. It's just B equals and D equals. Okay, next we'll go ahead and define a formula here. Okay, we'll accidentally type H in here instead of D and see how Mathcad deals with it. So we are, looking back, we know that H is Planck's constant, and that has a whole bunch of units attached to it. But when we ask Mathcad, okay, what is I? We see this number here and a bunch of units attached, and you can sit here, rethink, I didn't put any units on B and D. I must have made a typo somewhere. So we can go back and look, see, I put H instead of D. And then we can ask Mathcad, okay, what is H? And we see it pops up here, it has that value, has that unit, it's already built into Mathcad. And all we have to do to fix this little typo is switch that H for D. We can go back in and edit any of those formulas we made, and I will automatically update for us. Okay, let's go ahead and add in some units for B and D here. We'll make them centimeters, and we're able to see that I is automatically updating for us. So it did change it into meters. If we want to keep it centimeters, all we have to do is change that M for meters into a cm for centimeters. And I did mention in the PowerPoint how Mathcad will stop you from adding or subtracting any variables that have units that aren't compatible. So if we add B in seconds, B in centimeters, and you can't add centimeters in seconds, it'll stop you. It'll say these units are not compatible and will stop you from making simple mistakes like this. Okay. Moving on a bit here, we're going to take a look at how Mathcad works with Excel. So there's a couple different ways within this demo that we're going to use Excel. Our first way here is we're going to use a read Excel function. And what that does is it's actually reading from an Excel document live, pulling in the rows and columns that you want to see. So we'll go ahead and find my Excel workbook that I want to add in. I will select the rows and columns that I want to read in and use in my Mathcad workbook. Then what we're going to do is we're going to enter these and call them all within the same variable. And then I can actually ask Mathcad, okay, what are these rows and columns? And it'll pop up for me. Not only can I do that, but I can change what rows and columns are coming in. So say, oops, I accidentally meant to do 14 through 17, not 15 through 18. I can absolutely go back and change that. Again, it's reading live from that Excel sheet to automatically update for you whatever rows and columns you want to bring in. All right, let's go ahead and do some math with these variables we're bringing in. I mean, it's great to see them, but we want to actually be able to use them. Okay, so we'll go ahead and use some matrix notation here to call out one specific value and go ahead and do a quick calculation, change the units that are on it. So great, we're able to bring in Excel workbooks without having to retype everything or do a copy paste. We're able to read live from that Excel workbook and bring in and do some calculations or do some variable or unit changing on those values. Okay, taking a look at a different diagram that we've brought in, let's go ahead and define these variables. So you see, we're defining variables, we're explaining what's happening right next to the diagram while we're able to do math right underneath of it. So you're able to do all of this good stuff all at once. You don't have to switch between formats to have all of this together. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at this function here that is calling some of the variables that we made above. What we're doing here is we're protecting this formula, this equation with a password. So that means if you share it off with anybody, you can either hide the area so they can't see it at all, you can collapse it, or you can leave it expanded, but they can't change it. So that just gives you more control over your intellectual property. If it gives you control, if you want to share most of your document, but you want to keep those couple things hidden, keep them to yourself, or make sure that no one else changes it. You have the capacity and the power to do that with Mathcad. So go ahead and leave it expanded, but password protect that area so that if you want to change it, you will need to know the password. Okay, let's go ahead and use that variable that we defined up above right next to that diagram and use the equation that we password protected to go ahead and calculate out what the deflection is at L/2. Again, we change those units from meters to millimeters real quick. Just change that M to a MM and it automatically updates for me. Okay, here's where we get into a little bit more advanced and a little bit more complicated math where we're actually doing symbolic derivation of maximum deflection. So the Mathcad still has that strong engine behind it that can do that good math for you. So we can go ahead and we saw here that I was able to collapse this area. So if you have all this good math and symbolic derivation, but you don't want someone to get bogged down by that, if you send it off to someone who you know maybe isn't math focused, you can just have it all in there in a collapsed area where you're able to send it off, and only the people who want to do that deep dive can open it up and check it out. And again, we'll go ahead and just change the units here. Fantastic. All right, moving on, I'm just going to scroll through some plots that we have here, see some XY plots, and then we're going to talk more about Excel. So before we did that read Excel, well, we're living in those rows and columns. What we're going to do here is more like that PowerPoint container where I'm just going to double click. It's going to open up in Excel. I'm able to make some formatting changes, bold it, make it look more eye-catching, so you know what it's trying to show you. Okay, so we'll go ahead and exit out of that, and it'll automatically update for me in my Mathcad workbook. So here's something really great too, where you can incorporate those tables or any sort of charts that you already have done in Excel, and you want to just in your workbook to complete the story, to have the whole start to finish, all the information you need. You can incorporate those tables and charts into Mathcad as well. What we're going to take a look at now is how you're able to format graphs. So we see this XY chart here. It doesn't really get the point across. We don't know what it's trying to tell us here. So we're going to go ahead and make some formatting changes, and we'll be able to see it almost come alive, right before our eyes, and we'll be able to actually understand what this graph is trying to get across. And we see here that I just double clicked on this graph, and all of the formatting came up in this one window. I'm not having to search through anything to find, okay, now how do I get the legend in here? Where do I change the title? It's all in this one pop-up window that I can go ahead and make all of the changes at once, so that this graph properly demonstrates the point I'm trying to get across. So we go ahead and change the title. We'll add in some X and Y axes titles. We'll go ahead and thicken all of the lines so they pop out more against the background, and make sure that the legend properly describes what I'm trying to show. So just do all the good changes that, either the company standards or even your own personal standards for what a graph should look like, so it gets the point across correctly. Okay, we'll just finish up making some changes here. All right, so we can see that this graph really came alive while we made those couple formatting changes. We're able to understand it's the distance along the beam and the deflection across that distance. And we're able to see the deflection, the position of the maximum deflection, and also the load position. So from the beginning, we didn't know what this graph was trying to get across, and at the end, after formatting, there we go. And you do now have the capabilities in Mathcad to make all of these formatting changes. So within your document, you're able to get points clearly and concisely across. All right, great. We'll go ahead and keep moving on here. And you do see there's some of the programming here. And again, this just is pointing out that you have all the strong math capabilities with Mathcad to do any of these symbolic derivation in this advanced programming. So you can absolutely do all that and then still have all the text, images, and pictures that you need, so people can fully understand the point you're trying to get across and what factors went behind the decisions that you made. Okay, we'll go ahead and now make a 3D graph off of this programming that we did. So we can go ahead and give it a surface fill so we can more clearly see what it's describing. And again, this is not just a picture of a 3D graph. This is something live, just like we were reading those Excel and PowerPoint containers live. This graph is something live that we can zoom into, rotate it around, move it around, work with it. And it's not just a picture of something. Okay. Great, so that was the quick walkthrough of Mathcad that I had to show you today. Again, we saw how easy it was to work with units and how Mathcad automatically updated or converted any of those units that I was using. It also wouldn't let me add incompatible units like seconds and centimeters. We went through, we saw how you can make PowerPoint containers, Excel containers, and then we looked at how much difference formatting a graph can do, and you have that capacity with Mathcad. Okay, I'm going to move us back into the PowerPoint just so we can wrap up here, and then we can pause at the end for questions. So thank you for that. Okay. So I just want to walk through a little bit here what these new features in Mathcad that have been added in the past 2 releases. So we're going to talk a little bit about the Mathcad Prime 4 release, where we had performance enhancements, content protection. You were able to have those containers that we saw with PowerPoint and Excel. The usability enhancements, especially the equation breaks, have been approved, as well as Windows 10 support and critical bug fixes. So I am going to walk through these a little bit more in detail here. So we have the content protection, and we did see that within the demo where it was able to lock that formula. So either you can't see it or you can't change it. So that's really important if you want to send something out, but you don't want someone to have access to a particular area. So you can absolutely now do that, and that was new with Mathcad Prime 4. Okay, and we do have these containers. So we see in the picture here a Visio container where we're able to incorporate a drawing that you made, that you spent a lot of time in. You're able to incorporate that in Mathcad so you don't have to redo any of that work. And again, we did look at an Excel container where we did some formatting changes, and a PowerPoint container where we have that diagram and we were able to change some colors very quickly, no searching through your computer to find where did I make this drawing. What you can also do is you can copy and paste regions from your Mathcad workbook straight into Word, and it's going to look exactly the same as it did in your Mathcad. So that's just another way that you can reuse all the work that you have. So if you do nice calculations, a nice graph in Mathcad, don't have to redo that in a different program. You can just copy and paste and reuse it. That's what, I keep using those words. You can reuse and share it easy. And that's what we have been building Mathcad to do. Okay. So with Mathcad 5, Prime 5, this is where you had the new capabilities to go ahead and format your graphs. So you do see we have this beginning graph. We don't know the point it's trying to get across. And as you go ahead and edit any part of the plot, add in titles, add in axes, change the plot appearance, it's going to, and you also do have a lot of fonts to pick from. It's going to look better and better. And we'll see that the end picture at the end of the PowerPoint. We can add grid lines, value markers, insert plot and axis titles. And we did see all of this within the demonstration. We were able to see what big difference it makes when you format these graphs and add legends and data lines. And we see this graph looking a little better. We're starting to understand the point that's trying to get across. Okay. So just wrap it up here with a couple value points is that you're able to prevent the loss of IP if you're not having your design intent and all your calculations scattered across multiple programs and platforms. You can optimize your critical design and engineering process, especially if you use Creo and Mathcad together, because you have your models attached to your calculations in your design intent. So you can pass them off together and no one will not understand why you made the decisions or even have to go through the process again themselves of the calculating and figuring out why that decision was made. You can also improve your product quality. If you have all of this in the same page, you can not have any errors fall through the cracks like NASA had with their robot, and just have everything together. Okay. You can speed up your time to market if you're not switching back and forth between all these platforms, and you're able to have the strong math engine right next to any text. And if you have to send this off for any compliance, you can have it all together and not spend the time looking for everything as well. Okay, and here is the final picture of this graph that we saw earlier. You're able to understand the point it's trying to get across. The lines are clear. We have a legend describing everything. And also with Mathcad Prime 5, you are able to have multiple y-axes on the same graph. So again, you're comparing data sets with ease. You can quickly and easily represent your data so you can send it off to whoever needs to see it. Again, making that plot that's best for you and your company so you can communicate data in a clear and efficient way. Just in general, being able to have full control of your graphs really enhances how you can visualize your data. Okay, and with that, that was my PowerPoint and my presentation. Again, Mathcad is the tool, is the engineering document that you can use to have all of your text, diagrams, graphs, charts, anything you can combine it all together to have in this one workbook that you can easily reuse and share with others. So thanks for joining the webcast and for listening to me talk and talk for the past half hour. I'm happy you joined, and please ask any questions that you have. I'll do my best to answer them. And of course, I can have some other resources that I know help answer anything I don't know.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in really quick before we go to the next slide. I do have a question here that says, are you able to import Excel content from cells that are protected in Excel?
So I've never come across that question before. That's an excellent question. I'm going to write that one down, and then I can have Cassie get back to you.
Sounds good. And you can go on to the next slide. We've got one more question that came in, but we'll save it for the end.
Right. Okay, so I do have a couple of quick testimonies here with people who have used Mathcad and has really made a difference for them. So in Honeywell, they were able to communicate much better between the engineers with Mathcad. And we had B&W be able to use, again, Mathcad so they could more effectively get integrated with the project and they can understand what's happening. And then we had another company here use Mathcad with Excel, and it really saved them a lot of time because they were able to look at Mathcad and understand what was happening. Okay, and with that, I'll turn it over here to Jenny.
All right, so thank you, Colleen. I just wanted to thank everyone today for attending. I did also want to just quickly mention a couple promotions that we have running at this time. The first one is the Cyber Monday sale starting next Monday. We're going to be offering 35% off all new seats Mathcad. This is a pretty awesome sale going on. In addition to that, we have two other deals that are going to be running through the end of the year. The first one is the buy one, get one half off all seats of Mathcad. That does exclude the Cyber Monday sale. And the second one is the reactivation promotion that's going to be running of the year that allows you to reactivate any of your expired licenses to subscription at a very discounted rate. If you're interested in learning more about any of these offers, please feel free to reach out to Jenny or myself for more information. And Cassie, did you have some other questions that you wanted to touch on before we end?
Yeah, I've actually got someone with their hand raised. So Armando, if you are on, we are listening.
I just wanted to ask you, is it possible for you to send us your materials that you presented by email?
I can check and ask. I'd have to ask a couple people before I'm able to send that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Okay, next question is, how is Mathcad Prime different from Mathcad 15?
Right, so okay, so Mathcad Prime was made in order to work with new Windows releases. So Mathcad 15 and any not Prime won't work with Windows 10. So Mathcad Prime is made to work with the new Windows releases. So they are very similar. They're improving Mathcad Prime every year here, but they will not be releasing any more. There won't be a Mathcad 16 because they have switched over to Prime to work with Windows. Now, I do want to also say that any of your Mathcad 15 or older versions can be converted to Mathcad Prime, and you're going to use Mathcad 15 as that stepping stone to go ahead and convert over to Prime workbooks. Great question.
Awesome. And we do have, oh, actually we've got a few more. So the next one is, does Mathcad provide protection or organization of files that data is pulled from for a given Mathcad file? Does that make sense?
So are you asking how it works if you have Excel and PowerPoint all connected with Mathcad, and then how we keep track of all that? So that is also a good question that I did have the other day, and I am waiting for someone to get back of how all of that organization works, if they all come together, or if you're going to send it off to someone, if you have to send all the documents. So that is also something that I can get back to Cassie and Jenny. But that's so funny. I had not had that question before. And I think that was last week I got that question, and this week. So also a good question.
Awesome. We've got just one more. If you push dimensions from Mathcad to a model, are they linked permanently? And does the next person who opens that model need the same Mathcad document to edit those dimensions?
That is so funny because that is also along with the question that I got last week. So what we understood, and again, I can send a detailed explanation with all these other questions here as well, is that they will be connected, but you can send either separately, that Creo or Mathcad, and they can make whatever changes that they need to, and then it will break that connection, and you can do whatever you'd like. And then you can, of course, send it back and reincorporate them again. But I would like to send a more detailed description of that process whenever my expert gets back to me.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for answering all those questions. And thank you everybody for joining us on today's webinar on Mathcad. Everyone will receive a replay of the webinar shortly, so please reach out to Shannon or Jenny if you have any questions or would like to take advantage of one of the 3 promotions that we have going on at the moment. We are hosting another webinar on December 12th on how you can use Mathcad and Excel together, so feel free to join us then as well. You can find our registration page on eacpds.com/events. And thanks again, everyone. Have a great rest of your